What drives men to transform from competitors to predators in the span of a single night? How does a display of artistic talent become the catalyst for unspeakable brutality? In the quiet hours of New Year's Day, 2014, the city of Columbus, Georgia, witnessed a crime so heinous it would leave even veteran detectives questioning the depths of human depravity. Picture a young woman, vibrant and talented, whose only crime was outshining her opponents in a freestyle rap battle. Her victory, celebrated by the crowd, would ignite a powder keg of male ego and entitlement that exploded into a nightmare of violence, assault, and attempted murder. But this isn't just another tale of victimhood. It's a testament to the extraordinary will to survive against impossible odds. Imagine being shot 10 times, doused in gasoline, set ablaze, and left for dead in an abandoned lot, yet finding the strength not only to survive, but to ensure your attackers face justice. This is that story, a chronicle of how 3 men's wounded pride led them down a path of shocking violence, and how one woman's indomitable spirit refused to let them write her final chapter. As we explore this haunting case, we'll examine the toxic intersection of masculinity and violence, the failure of society to protect its vulnerable members, and most importantly, the raw courage of a survivor who transformed her trauma into triumph. This isn't just a crime story, it's a mirror held up to our society's darkest impulses and brightest possibilities. Welcome to True Crime Stories Archive, your gateway to the chilling world of real-life horror. Here, we delve into the darkest corners of humanity, unearthing terrifying stories that remind us evil isn't confined to fiction. If you're new here, join our growing community by hitting subscribe and make sure to activate notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's begin by meeting the central figure in this story, Brielle Saunders. Born into a family where music wasn't just entertainment but a way of life, Brielle grew up in Columbus, Georgia, under the nurturing influence of her father, a respected gospel musician. From an early age, she demonstrated an extraordinary gift for rhythm and wordplay, transforming everyday experiences into powerful lyrical expressions. By her teenage years, Brielle had evolved into something of a local legend in Columbus's underground rap scene. Her reputation wasn't built on bravado or connections, but raw talent, an ability to weave words together with a precision that left audiences spellbound. In the male-dominated world of freestyle rap battles, she stood out not just as a female artist, but as a force to be reckoned with, earning respect through pure skill and dedication to her craft. But on the other side of this story lurked 3 men whose names would become synonymous with unthinkable cruelty: Robert Johnson, Katori Glover, and Joey Garan. Each carried their own dark history, a combustible mix of ego, violence, and twisted entitlement that would ignite with devastating consequences. Robert Johnson, 25, emerged as the architect of the horror that would unfold. His history of violence stretched back to his early teens, including a disturbing incident where he forced an 8-year-old girl into sexual acts when he was just 13. His response to that crime, claiming the child had willingly followed him, offered a chilling glimpse into a mind that refused to acknowledge the gravity of his actions. As an adult, Johnson had cultivated an aura of intimidation, using his imposing presence and sharp tongue to dominate those around him. Katori Glover, 26, presented a different kind of danger. Those who knew him spoke of a man who maintained a facade of calm that could shatter without warning, like a frozen lake concealing treacherous currents beneath. His record, marked by incidents of theft and assault, painted a picture of impulsive violence, a trait that made him particularly dangerous when paired with Johnson's calculating nature. The youngest of the trio, Joey Garan, 22, might have seemed the least threatening at first glance. But his desperate need for validation and acceptance made him perhaps the most volatile. Like a compass without true north, Garen's desire to prove himself often led to reckless escalation, his actions fueled by a toxic mixture of insecurity and bravado. On that fateful New Year's Day, these disparate threads of character and circumstance would weave together into a tapestry of horror at a local gathering spot known as Garden Drive. The night began like many others in Columbus's rap scene. A house party alive with the energy of musical competition, the air electric with the back and forth of freestyle battles. Brielle arrived at the party in her element. Her confidence earned through countless victories in similar venues. The crowd gravitated toward her naturally, drawn by her reputation and the promise of witnessing her legendary wordplay. Among those watching were Johnson, Glover, and Garen, their initial fascination with her skill masking darker intentions that would surface as the night progressed. The energy inside the Garden Drive house pulsed with anticipation as Brielle stepped into the freestyle circle. What unfolded was more than just a rap battle. It was a display of artistry that commanded attention. Her verses flowed with surgical precision, each line cutting through the smoky air with razor-sharp wit and undeniable skill. The crowd's reaction told the story. Heads nodding in appreciation, spontaneous shouts of approval, and the kind of genuine respect that can't be demanded, only earned. As the night deepened, the battle shifted from the crowded house to the more intimate space of Brielle's car. What seemed like a natural extension of the evening's creative energy, Johnson, Glover, and Garen, joining her to continue trading verses, would soon reveal itself as the prelude to nightmare. The initial atmosphere remained light, filled with the casual banter and competitive spirit that typically characterized these impromptu rap sessions. But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. Johnson and Glover exchanged glances that carried unspoken malice, their demeanor shifting like storm clouds gathering before a tempest. The playful competition that had defined the night began to curdle into something more sinister. Though Brielle, still caught up in the flow of creativity, didn't immediately register the change in atmosphere. The transformation from rap battle to horror show happened in an instant. The metallic click of a gun being drawn shattered the rhythmic flow of verses. Glover pulled his weapon first, followed immediately by Johnson, their firearms no longer concealed but aimed directly at Brielle. The car's interior, once alive with musical energy, became a claustrophobic prison of terror. Their commands came sharp and cruel. Drive. The steering wheel felt foreign under Brielle's trembling fingers as she navigated through Columbus's streets, every turn taken under the watchful eyes of men whose artistic rivalry had morphed into something monstrous. The tension inside the vehicle was suffocating. Each passing moment weighted with the growing certainty that this night would end in violence. Glover's patience snapped first. His demand that Brielle pull over carried the finality of a death sentence. Taking control of the wheel, he forced her into the passenger seat, his actions brutal and purposeful. The crude remarks that passed between the men revealed the depths of their depraved intentions, while Garen's nervous energy in the back seat suggested his full awareness of the horror about to unfold. Their destination was Far Road, a desolate lot chosen specifically for its isolation. No streetlights pierced the darkness here. No passing cars would interrupt what they had planned. As the vehicle came to a stop, the only sounds were the idle of the engine and Brielle's racing heart, counting down the seconds to an ordeal that would test the very limits of human endurance. The abandoned lot spread out before them like a stage set for tragedy. Overgrown weeds swayed in the cold night air, while scattered debris cast twisted shadows in the pale moonlight. Brielle's pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears, her reasoned arguments met with mockery that echoed across the empty space. These men, who hours before had been fellow artists engaged in creative competition, now revealed themselves as predators, viewing their victim not as a human being, but as an object for their twisted revenge. What followed was a display of cruelty so extreme it would later leave hardened courtroom veterans struggling to maintain their composure. At gunpoint, they forced Brielle to strip, systematically stripping away not just her clothing, but her dignity. The bitter winter air bit at her exposed skin as the men took turns inflicting physical and sexual assault, their weapons serving as instruments of both threat and humiliation. The men treated their attacks like entertainment, passing their victim between them with casual cruelty that spoke to a complete disconnection from human empathy. Their laughter, echoing across the abandoned lot, created a soundtrack of horror that would haunt the eventual investigation. Each act of violation was deliberate, calculated to inflict maximum physical and psychological damage. When they finally tired of their assault, the men's violence took an even more sinister turn. They attempted to force Brielle into her car's trunk, their intentions clear. This isolated lot would become more than just a crime scene. But in this moment of deepest darkness, Brielle's survival instincts ignited. Drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, she broke free from their grasp and ran. The sound of gunfire shattered the night silence. Johnson and Glover opened fire, their bullets finding their mark with devastating accuracy. 10 times their shots struck Brielle, each impact threatening to end her desperate bid for freedom. Her body crumpled to the ground, blood staining the cold earth beneath her. But even as she lay there, bullet-riddled and broken, Brielle's mind remained sharp. She made the split-second decision that would ultimately save her life: playing dead. Through superhuman effort, she controlled her breathing, remaining motionless as her attackers approached to verify their handiwork. Convinced of their success but determined to eliminate any evidence, the men retrieved a gas can from the car's trunk. The acrid smell of gasoline filled the air as they doused their victim's seemingly lifeless body. The strike of a match, the whoosh of flames igniting, and the men fled, leaving what they believed to be their final act of violence burning behind them. Yet this was not the end of Brielle's story, but rather the beginning of an extraordinary tale of survival. Despite her devastating injuries, bullet wounds that would have killed most people, burns that seared her flesh, she refused to surrender to death. With unimaginable fortitude, she began to crawl, every movement sending waves of agony through her ravaged body. Through the darkness and pain, she inched her way toward salvation. Each movement was a battle against both her injuries and the urge to give in to unconsciousness. The distance she covered might have been small in physical terms, but in terms of human endurance, it was monumental. Her salvation came in the form of passing motorists, drawn to the scene by what they initially thought were faint animal sounds. What they discovered instead was a scene that would forever haunt them. A young woman grievously wounded, yet still clinging to life with remarkable tenacity. Their swift action in calling emergency services set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to justice. The medical team that received Brielle at the hospital were stunned by both the extent of her injuries and her will to survive. Her body bore testament to the savage attack: 10 bullet wounds, severe burns, and extensive trauma from the sexual assault. Yet somehow, defying medical probability, her vital signs remained stable. The doctors would later describe her survival as nothing short of miraculous. As Brielle fought for her life in the hospital, Lieutenant Lance Dion of the Columbus Police Department took charge of the investigation. A veteran detective with decades of experience handling violent crimes, even he was shaken by the brutality of this case. The abandoned lot on Far Road became a focal point of forensic activity, with investigators meticulously documenting every piece of evidence. The crime scene told a horrifying story. Bullet casings littered the ground, their positions helping recreate the frenzied shooting. Tire marks indicated the hasty departure of the attackers. Patches of scorched earth and scattered clothing fragments painted a picture of the final, brutal attempt on Brielle's life. Each piece of evidence was carefully collected, photographed and catalogued, building a damning case against the perpetrators. Witnesses from the Garden Drive party began coming forward, their testimonies filling in crucial details of the night's events. They described seeing Brielle leave with Johnson, Glover and Garin, their accounts matching the timeline she had provided from her hospital bed. The forensic evidence further corroborated her story. DNA collected from the scene and from Brielle's body provided irrefutable proof of the men's involvement. The investigation moved swiftly. When confronted, the three suspects' carefully constructed alibis began to crumble. During interrogation, each man tried to minimize his role, attempting to shift blame onto the others. Johnson maintained an air of cold arrogance, insisting everything had been consensual. Glover's stoic facade cracked when presented with the DNA evidence. Garin, the youngest and most vulnerable to pressure, began to show signs of breaking under the weight of his guilt. The subsequent trial became a landmark case in Columbus's legal history. The courtroom fell into stunned silence as Brielle took the witness stand. Her presence commanded attention, not just for the physical scars that testified to her ordeal, but for the unwavering strength with which she delivered her testimony. Despite the trauma she had endured, her voice remained steady as she recounted every horrific detail of that January night. The prosecution, led by Sadana Daly, built an airtight case against the three defendants. Evidence mounted day after day, forensic findings, witness testimonies, DNA analysis, and the haunting details of Brielle's account painted a comprehensive picture of the men's brutality. Daly systematically dismantled every defense argument, exposing the calculated nature of their actions and their complete lack of remorse. The defense attorneys attempted to paint their clients in a more sympathetic light. Adam DeVere, representing Katori Glover, argued for leniency, claiming his client had shown remorse and could be rehabilitated. Similar arguments were made for Johnson and Garin, but these pleas rang hollow against the weight of evidence and the severity of their crimes. Prosecutor Daly's closing arguments resonated through the courtroom with devastating impact. She highlighted how the men had not only attacked Brielle physically, but had attempted to destroy her very humanity. The prosecutor emphasized how they had treated their victim as disposable, showing a level of cruelty that demanded the harshest possible punishment. Judge Art Smith III's courtroom fell silent as he prepared to deliver the sentences. His words carried the full weight of justice as he addressed each defendant. Johnson and Glover received 6 life sentences plus 95 years, while Garin was sentenced to 5 life sentences plus 70 years. The judge's commentary was particularly scathing, noting that in his entire career on the bench, he had rarely encountered such deliberate and calculated brutality. The sentences encompassed multiple charges: aggravated assault, rape, sodomy, kidnapping, and attempted murder. Each charge represented a piece of the nightmare they had inflicted on Brielle, and each carried its own severe penalty. The courtroom erupted in silent relief as the sentences were read, while Brielle's supporters finally allowed themselves to exhale. The impact of this case rippled far beyond the courtroom walls. Brielle's recovery became a testament to human resilience, not just physical healing from 10 gunshot wounds and severe burns, but the arduous journey of emotional and psychological recovery. Her strength inspired a community-wide conversation about violence against women and the importance of supporting survivors. The medical professionals who treated Brielle often spoke of her remarkable spirit. Despite enduring months of intensive care and rehabilitation, she maintained an unwavering determination to reclaim her life. Each small victory in her recovery, each step taken, each word spoken, each moment of independence regained, represented a defeat of her attacker's ultimate goal: to silence her forever. The case sparked significant changes in Columbus's approach to violent crimes. Community leaders and advocacy groups used the spotlight of this case to push for stronger protective measures and support systems for vulnerable individuals. The police department, under Lieutenant Dion's guidance, implemented enhanced training protocols for handling similar cases with the sensitivity and urgency they deserved. The investigation itself became a model for handling complex, violent crimes. Lieutenant Dion's methodical approach, combining traditional detective work with modern forensic techniques, demonstrated the importance of thorough, patient investigation. The case files continue to be used in training new investigators, showing how attention to detail and persistent follow-through can bring even the most vicious criminals to justice. More than just a cautionary tale, Brielle's story emerged as a powerful narrative of survival and resilience. Her decision to speak openly about her experience, though painful, helped countless others find their own courage to confront abuse and seek justice. She transformed from victim to advocate, her voice stronger than ever in championing the rights and dignity of survivors. The true significance of this case extends beyond its legal outcome. It serves as a stark reminder of how quickly human beings can descend into unthinkable cruelty, but also how the human spirit can rise above such darkness. Brielle's survival and triumph over her attackers stands as a beacon of hope for others facing their own battles against violence and injustice. As we conclude this episode, remember that stories like Brielle's, though difficult to hear, must be told. They remind us of the importance of standing against violence in all its forms, supporting survivors, and ensuring that justice prevails. If this story has moved you, please consider subscribing to True Crime Stories Archive and sharing this video to spread awareness. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. Leave your thoughts in the comments below and join us next time as we explore another compelling case that challenges our understanding of human nature and justice. Remember, evil thrives in silence. It's our duty to give voice to these stories and ensure that survivors like Brielle know they're not alone in their fight for justice.